Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is echo chambers. So we often find ourselves, despite the vast amount of information and the wide spectrum of opinions and beliefs that are reflected on the internet and in social media, we often find ourselves in an echo chamber, really, that is reflecting our own beliefs and convictions, which then validates our beliefs and convictions and makes them seem more like the truth. So we're going to just dig in and play around with that phenomenon, see what we can discover about it. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and all your organs and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating and electrifying and energizing all your cells, all your electrons, all your molecules, and generating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation and the tickling and the tingling, and allow yourselves to become present right here, right now, in these magnificent bodies that enable us to experience life. So welcome, welcome, welcome. You may notice that we have a different background today. The brick wall was actually a backdrop, and it came down, and I decided not to put it back up. And I had this background and figured, why not? Why not switch things up a bit? So we're talking about echo chambers. And I think that this is a really, really interesting phenomenon, something for us to have a look at, because we spend time in our lives, when we're online, when we're on the internet, we spend time in our favorite places, right? We look to the same sources oftentimes in our news feeds, or to seek out information, and our searches become reflective of our biases, and what happens is that the world that we experience reflects us, and that can not only strengthen our bias and validate our ideas, but also it can make us believe that the things that we believe, or the things that we think we know, are the way that things are the truth. And I think this can be a really dangerous thing, where people who are holding the same ideologies are interacting exclusively with other people that are holding the same ideologies. And I think it's very important for us to recognize, first of all, to recognize a bigger picture. And second, to broaden our own exposure, to entertain other ideas, to be exposed to other ideas and to entertain other ideas, to try to find a place of understanding for other ideas. And I'm wondering what you think about this, and if it's something that you do. Like I like everybody, I have my own biases, and we only have so much time, right, to dedicate to the things that we're interested in. And so how do we get exposed to other ideas to be able to get a bigger picture? So where this conversation is coming from is I'm invested in the cryptocurrency market, and someone who's very close to me has made a recommendation to me, and so I've invested in that. And they are very, very invested philosophically, emotionally with this particular investment. And they spend time on threads, information threads that are specific to this investment. So by default, there's tremendous enthusiasm for this investment in that particular thread. And so recognizing that depth and intensity of enthusiasm, what's happened in my perception is that there's not necessarily a balanced, an ability even to have a balanced assessment of the value in the bigger picture of that investment, because it's an echo chamber, essentially. It's people that are sold on a particular idea and project that are echoing to one another their enthusiasm and their thoughts and feelings about it. And so what can happen, whether it's an investment or a social group or a politically ideological orientation, that when there is this kind of group and echo chamber, it magnifies itself. And by the way, I don't know if you guys are putting in any comments. I don't see any comments yet, which is why I haven't responded. So if you're here, say hey, just so I know that everything's working. It looks like it is, but I'm not certain. So, I think those of us who are spiritually oriented, we're going to be trafficking in content that is in alignment with that worldview. And I guess really this conversation goes to the whole notion of worldview and how it's really quite remarkable that we as humans can experience vastly different perceptions of what's going on in the world, and maybe even vastly different perceptions of the world itself. And the thing about these echo chambers is that I think that they tend to strengthen the perimeter, the walls, so to speak, for these communities in such a way that there's more conviction, there's more strength of belief, to the point where the conviction can grow to the place where people believe that this is the truth. You know, that there's no longer an objective measure. There's no longer a foil to compare to. And I think this is such an important thing, to maintain perspective. You know, like where we put our attention magnifies, right? Where we put our attention, whether it's positive or negative, magnifies. And so even, for instance, with our contemporary plague, there are different I want to almost say vortexes of belief and ideas and information. And so there are certain channels of information that are going to be extreme on one end or another end, or, you know, there are all these different resources that believe their truth or believe their information to be the truth. And it creates a factionalization, you know, these different worldviews. So for instance, I mean, there are folks that believe we're facing the end of the world and they're preparing for that. And there are other folks who, you know, believe that this is the Renaissance, so to speak. And there are, an example of this is just an interesting example. So there are people that truly, truly believe the earth is flat. And so I decided, a friend of mine actually went through a phase where she was just really kind of believing that the possibility that the earth is flat. And so, you know, I know this person as an intelligent human being. And so I thought, okay, I've got to look into this. You know, rather than dismissing something completely out of ignorance of what was behind it, I figured, okay, I'm going to have a look at this and just keep my mind open to like what's behind it. And there was actually, I think it was on Netflix, that there was a documentary about these folks that believe the earth is flat. And it was interesting to be looking at the proofs that they manufactured for themselves. And the most interesting part of it that I really, really appreciated was that they had an experiment that in doing the experiment, they would be able to validate their belief that the earth was flat. And so this is also talking about the power of belief. So they did this experiment and it was on the video, it was part of the film. And they had certain results that they predicted from the experiment. And their results did not jive with what their expectations were. In other words, their own experiment disproved their theory. And here's the thing, they were so identified with their belief that the earth was flat that rather than looking at the results of the experiment and allowing that to validate, you know, to present a truth to them, they believed instead that the experiment was wrong. And I believe, if I recall correctly, which I may not, in the video, they somebody actually said, well, I've built my whole life around this idea that the earth is flat. It can't not be flat. And so this is part of the echo chamber phenomenon, where we become so identified with and convinced of and convicted, have such conviction about these ideas because we're validated from all these different places by other people's input, that that we lose touch with reality. I'm not saying that there exists a reality with a capital R, because we each have our own experience of it, but our experience of it is very much colored by the input, the information input that we receive. So I haven't, again, I'm going to just apologize if you guys are writing comments. I'm not seeing anything coming through, which is why I'm not acknowledging or responding. So I apologize if you're commenting and feel like you're not being seen or heard. I don't see or hear you at the moment, which it is what it is. Anyway, so echo chamber, right here I am talking out into the universe and just hearing my own feedback, right? Thank you, Rosalind. Good morning. Good morning. So, oops, thank you, Tammy. I appreciate it. So what happened just now is that my green screen started falling down. So I'm going to put it back up. And this is an imperfect setup, but first day. What do you guys think of the background? I really appreciate you guys chiming in, so I know I'm not alone. What do you think of the backdrop? I'm curious. The brick backdrop that I had, it was an actual backdrop, fell down, and I decided to put this virtual one up. So I'm wondering what you think. And I have a green screen so that most of me isn't vibrating like the chair is. Oh, thank you, Tammy. Good. I'm glad to hear that. So I appreciate that. So we're talking about echo chambers and how we tend to seek out information. Good morning, Lisa. Great to have you here with us. We're talking about echo chambers and how oftentimes the information that we receive is a reflection of the things we already believe. And so our beliefs get reinforced and our ideas get strengthened. And then we get the impression that the rest of the world has the same beliefs and thoughts and perspectives that we do, which is also a really interesting phenomenon, because then, we feel less alone and we're in this echo chamber, but then we also tend to extrapolate that out into the world to believe that that there's interest. For instance, let's say we're looking at developing a business, and we talk to our friends about the business. Now, it's likely that in many respects, our friends hold similar ideas and perspectives that we do, or similar to our own. And so Rosalind says, on two devices now, comments not registering if I comment with my phone. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. That's bizarre. Well, thank you for that experiment, Rosalind. I appreciate it. Good morning, Dennis. So good to have you here this morning. You're so funny. So I'm, for those of you who haven't weighed in on the background, what do you think? The brick backdrop that I had fell down. So, and I see that as a metaphor. Somehow this brick wall in my life has now crumbled. So I'm allowing that. I don't know what it's going to mean exactly, but thank you, Lisa. Cool. In the background, it reminds me of a Gustav Klimt painting. I don't know if you're familiar with Klimt, Klimpt, I believe, but wonderful, wonderful artist. And I just love the colors. And I have this awesome shawl that also reminds me of this background. Anyway, back to echo chambers. We tend to want to engage with people that are like-minded, where we can feel affinity and community and connection. Oh, Dennis, you are just such a flatterer. Thank you so much. You're very sweet. Now I'm blushing and speechless. Okay, so I think that it's a really important exercise for us to go beyond our echo chamber, to go beyond our circle of belief and conviction, to learn more. And like I was talking about the flat earthers, I really had no space to believe that the earth is flat, but I figured, okay, I'm going to look at this and just try to keep an open mind just to see. And it was interesting to me to see that they disproved their own idea and then couldn't accept their own proof. But entertaining, I think we get to be aware of how cultivated our bias is, and to expose ourselves to ideas outside that bias. So here's another interesting conversation. I know a bunch of people, because I have the podcast with my partner, Sustainability Now. We've learned a lot about alternative energy and hydrogen as an alternative energy option beyond battery-powered vehicles. So hydrogen-powered electric vehicles instead of battery-powered electric vehicles, for example. And there are a lot of people who really believe that hydrogen's time has come and that hydrogen is the fuel of the future. And in that environment, talking to and listening to and reading about people who have this strong conviction about hydrogen energy, it magnified, in my experience, it made it much more of a reality as I started looking beyond to see the people that were challenging that notion. I first of all noticed a great resistance within myself, because I have my belief about hydrogen being the energy of the future. And I got to see that that is not the preeminently held belief. So it's really, I mean, from everything I read, well, from the pro-hydrogen stuff that I read, it was like a no-brainer that this is the way that we're headed. And looking at broader media, the will of the masses is not necessarily there. So it's so interesting to be recognizing the contrast between these worlds, the world of the echo chamber and then a broader a broader perspective that incorporates other ideas that are at odds with the foundation belief. And so, I think that the upshot of what I want to say today is, as far as echo chambers, is that we can be in an echo chamber and not even realize it. Because social media feeds us things that are aligned with all our existing interests, even searches, feedback things that are aligned with existing interests in history. And so the things that are reflected back, the information that is fed to us in the world is often something that confirms and validates pre-existing beliefs, but that doesn't mean that it's true. And I just want to encourage all of us to not only question, but to be willing to challenge our own ideas, to be willing to entertain other perspectives, and to get a broader view, so that we're willing to research opinions that don't agree with ours. We're willing to cross the bridge enough, at least to gain an understanding that can create better communication, because the paradigm for the future is communication and cooperation and collaboration, rather than dominance and conflict and control. So I think that it is beholden to us to be broadening our ideas and our exposure to ideas in order to hopefully build bridges to connect. And with that, I'm going to call it a morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I want to thank you for being with me in these mornings, for sharing your perspectives, for engaging in these musings. And until next time, I so appreciate you. So until next time, lots and lots of love. Hope to see you again.